Arm's leadership, Dr. Van Horn, and this William Jewell cabinet, that your college is in great hands. Congratulations, class of 26. All of you, please join me in a quick fist pump. Congratulations. There's a quote I always like to share by Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. And it's simply that when a mind is stretched by a new experience, it can never return to its old dimension. And that's where you sit today as William Jewell College graduates. Your horizons will forever be altered. That's what happened to me. I didn't really know it at the time, but I can assure you, you will be cherished by your employers. You'll be successful in whatever you do, and you will be unique in your thought process. You'll be differential. So today, I'm honored to introduce our speaker and proud to call him a fellow Jewell alumni. It's particularly meaningful to me as my father served as a Navy medic in the Marines in World War II and was a Purple Heart recipient. If you knew Tyler B. Folan as a Jewell graduate, you're not surprised to see him standing here, representing his college and his country, having served both with distinction. While he was earning a Jewell degree in political science, I think Gary Armstrong is around here somewhere, Tyler served 4 years in the Student Senate and became the first student to complete 2 terms as president. He was a member of the prior Leadership Studies program and Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, competed in both tennis and cross country, and was part of many other student groups. He was also voted by his classmates as the male student most likely to succeed. 17 years ago today, Tyler walked across this stage to receive his diploma, then minutes later stood on the quad where he was commissioned as an officer in the United States Marine Corps. Now, this third-generation Marine is a lieutenant colonel after graduating from the basic school and infantry officer course. He reported to the 1st Battalion, 6th Marines. As a rifle platoon commander, he deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, where he conducted both combat and counterinsurgency operations. He later served as aide-de-camp to the commanding general of the 2nd Marine Division as an instructor at the basic school and infantry officers course. Returning to operating forces, he has completed assignments in Afghanistan, Norway, and across Africa and Europe. In addition to earning 3 master's degrees, he completed several military schools, all with honors. Earlier this month, he completed the highly competitive School of Advanced Military Studies, where he has been nominated for the Joint Student of the Year. This summer, he will report to the United States Forces Korea as Joint Operational Planner. I had a few minutes to visit with Tyler on the way over here, and I can assure you it is inspiring and it's a bit humbling because I've almost never seen someone set the bar as high as he does. It's my honor to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Tyler B. Folan as our 2026 William Jewell College commencement speaker.
Bill, thanks for the very kind words and remarks. Sincerely appreciate it. Wind Ensemble, excellent work. That was great crescendo you had, and I really appreciate that. President Van Horn, trustees, faculty, staff, families, friends, and most importantly, our graduates from William Jewell College. Congratulations. There are few places like William Jewell College. It's a place where students from different backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences somehow become part of the same community. Somewhere along the way, many of us found ourselves debating philosophy in Jewell Hall, preparing for exams in Matthews Building, making lifelong friends in Browning, Eaton, and Melrose, and gathering by those fraternity houses, only to witness the tension between the Lambda Chi Alphas, the Kappa Alpha orders, and of course the Phi Gamma Deltas, the Fijis. We're realizing in Senior's house that graduation had somehow came quicker and faster than we expected. And through it all, we collectively learned two truths, timeless truths. The first, parking on campus will always remain limited. Right? The second, the bricks. For those not familiar with the bricks, we're talking about the bricks between the dormitories, will always remain protected. Campus security has ensured this sacred responsibility with impressive consistency, even while I was here, through tickets, warnings, and the occasional vehicle boot for anyone that dare test said perimeter. But those experiences, small as they may seem at the time, became what made this place so special. William Jewell College taught us to think critically, communicate clearly, and engage ideas larger than ourselves. But most importantly, it gave us a community that felt like home. And speaking of home, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize some of the people who quietly shaped generations of Cardinal students. The incredible cafeteria staff. During my years here, many of us affectionately referred to Chris, Beth, and Becky as our campus moms. Chris, the card swiper, always greeted students with warmth and familiarity. Beth, a true Renaissance woman of the cafeteria, somehow seemed capable of solving any problem faced, to include fixing our beloved soft serve ice cream machine on a number of occasions. And then there's Becky. God, Becky, she's incredible. A baking genius. She can improve even the hardest week of the semester, and candidly, I'm still trying to track down her blueberry and white chocolate chip raspberry scone recipe. But long before many of us realized it, they were teaching us something important. Community is built through small, consistent acts of care. And I'm genuinely glad to know that that tradition continues through today, through Kiki. Kiki, who clearly carried that same spirit of compassion and kindness for this generation of Cardinal students. The admiration for the cafeteria staff at William Jewell apparently is timeless. But before we go any further, we should acknowledge something important. No one arrives at this moment alone. To the professors, faculty, and staff at William Jewell College, thank you. Thank you for demanding excellence. Thank you for investing your time. And thank you for shaping the minds and character in ways that will often not be fully understood for years to come. And to our families, especially our families, this moment belongs to you as well. You carried burdens that were never graded, you provided support that was often unseen, and you believed consistently when it mattered most. Graduates, please, at some point, thank me today. Because long before this degree was earned, it was supported. To our graduates, seriousness now. We're stepping into a world defined by uncertainty. The pace of change is accelerating, institutions are being tested, and technology is reshaping how we live, work, and lead. And at times, the future feels less like a clear path, but more like turbulent seas. But here's the good news. William Jewell did not prepare you for certainty. Rather, it prepared you for this, for thinking clearly when things are unclear, for asking better questions when answers are incomplete, and for leading when the way forward is not obvious. So today, I want to leave you with 3 simple principles. They're not complicated, they're not flashy, but they will hold when everything else feels uncertain. The 3 are: resiliency beats talent. 2, build habits, not headlines. And 3, leave every place better. The first, resiliency beats talent. I learned that lesson here at William Jewell. As a freshman, I took the infamous class, The Responsible Self, which I think you all can share and appreciate, an introduction to the liberal arts education built around foundations and big questions. And to be completely honest with you, I was overwhelmed almost immediately. We were reading some of the greats, St. Augustine's Confessions, right? John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. Now, what I've yet to admit publicly, particularly at the time as a freshman, I had no idea who St. Augustine was. I thought it was some golf course in the United Kingdom. And I genuinely believe John Stuart Mill was the full name of the host of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. It was vastly wrong. Meanwhile, in the classroom, it was filled with brilliant students who always seemed thoughtful with their comments prepared the moment the professor asked any and all questions. And my professor, who taught philosophy, was brilliant, demanding, and not especially interested in lowering the standard for me. I didn't earn an acceptable grade in that class, but looking back, it may have been one of my most important experiences of my education. Because for the first time, I realized that education was not proving you're the smartest person in the room. It's about learning how to grow. And thankfully, there were professors who saw potential long before I fully saw it myself. And I'd like to call some of them out in no particular order. From the history department, the grades of that of Dr. Thomas Howell or Dr. Elaine Reynolds. From the prior leadership center, Mr. Kevin Schatzfeld and Sandy. From the science department, Dr. Ann Dima, Dr. Tara Allen, Dr. Blaine Baker. From the music and theater department, Dr. Ron Nowitzki and Dr. Nathan Wyman. For business and economics department, Dr. Greg Whitaker and Dr. Cook. And from the story, political science department and international relations, where I majored as a poli-sci student, the legends of Dr. Ryan Stahl and Dr. Barry Armstrong. All of them challenged me relentlessly through my time here at William Jewell, but none lowered the bar. Instead, they raised my perspective. They taught me to think more critically, to write more clearly, and reflect more honestly. Most importantly, they invested their time in me and my classmates, not simply as a student, but as a person. Now, we're forgetting someone with the political science department. Here's our cue, Dr. Holman. It's Dr. Alan Holman, my academic advisor, and part of the remarkable triad of professors that shaped the political science department my time here at William Jewell. Dr. Holman has invested 29 years of his life enlightening generations of students here at William Jewell, and I'm under the statement that he's now entering a well-earned retirement. You guys can join me in a round of applause for Dr. Holman. Thank you. It is difficult to fully measure the impact a professor like Dr. Holman has on an institution because the impact lives through the lives of his students. At times, Dr. Holman served as a second father to me on campus, encouraging me, challenging me, and consistently pushing me to rise towards greater potential than I often saw in myself. He continues to mentor me even to this day, having written letters of recommendation for me to join the Marine Corps, wrote me while I was forward deployed in Afghanistan, and later gave me a letter of recommendation for the school I'm attending, the School of Advanced Military Studies. Now, looking back, I realized something deeply important. One of the greatest gifts a professor, teacher, or mentor can give a student is belief paired with standards. Not lowering expectations, but helping someone rise to meet them. Over time, I came to appreciate what the liberal arts truly offer. Not intellectual comfort, but intellectual resilience. The willingness to keep pushing that boulder up the hill. Continue to learn, to continue to reflect, and continue to grow long after success would have made it easy to plateau. Graduates, life will place you in rooms where you will feel unprepared. You'll encounter people smarter than you, more experienced than you, and more naturally gifted than you. Do not let that discourage you, because long-term success rarely belongs to the most talented person in the room. It belongs to the person willing to continue learning, the person willing to endure discomfort, the person willing to keep climbing. Resiliency beats talent. The second, build habits, not headlines. Years after graduating from William Jewell, I attended one of the Marine Corps' toughest leadership schools. It's one of my most physically and mentally demanding experiences of my life at the time. On that very first day, the director looked at us and said the following: "It's not about you." Didn't want black speakers, so hopefully you heard that in the back. And he told us to write that down in our notebooks. And at the time, I thought he meant humility. Years later, I had the privilege of returning as an instructor. I realized something important. That phrase was not unique to my class. It was foundational to every class. Because leadership was never intended to be about personal recognition. It was about responsibility. Responsibility to the people entrusted to you. As Marines, we consistently discussed habits of action and habits of thought. The small decisions you make daily, especially under pressure, would eventually define you as a leader. Because when difficult moments arise, people do not magically arise to the occasion. Rather, they fall back to their level of training and their habits. And over time, it's not about you stop being a phrase written in the notebook, although I still write in my notebook, of course, but it became real. It became real every time my platoon crossed the line of departure in Sandy in Afghanistan. It became real preparing Marines and sailors for operations across Africa and Europe, and it became especially real because of one Marine. He was an exceptional non-commissioned officer that enlisted from Pennsylvania, who had previously served honorably at Camp David. He'd already beat cancer once. But while supporting operations in Morocco, we received concerning news that his blood work suggested that cancer may have returned. My company and I began the arduous process to work to redeploy him home from Morocco back to Spain, and ultimately back to the United States to Walter Reed so he could begin an aggressive treatment program. We later learned, unfortunately, that cancer had returned and indeed it spread to his lymph nodes. Thankfully, because we were able to get him home quickly, he received treatment that ultimately led to a full recovery. And during those treatments, he met an incredible woman in Washington, D.C. area, someone who, thankfully for him, didn't mind scars. Years later, I had the honor of officiating their wedding in the beautiful countryside of Pennsylvania alongside the Marines of our company. And today, he's built an incredible life, a successful career, and has completed graduate school at Georgetown University. That experience taught me something I will never forget. Leadership is not about being the center of the story. It's about taking care of the people inside of it. The world will encourage you to chase attention, to measure success on visibility, recognition, applause, and dare I say, dopamine. But resist that temptation. Focus instead on the quiet discipline that actually sustains trust. Habits of discipline, habits of service, habits of humility, and habits of responsibility. Because of the moments that matter most, your character will not be built on the headlines you chase, be built by the habits you practiced long before anyone was watching. Build habits, not headlines. The third and final principle. Leave every place better. Long before I fully understood what leadership is, I was introduced to that simple idea through scouting. Leave things better than how you found them. That principle eventually guided me to earning the rank of Eagle Scout, but more importantly, it taught me that service was not something we did occasionally. It was a responsibility you carried to every team, every community, and every relationship you joined. Years later, William Jewell College helped deepen that understanding. In the spring of 2006, just months after Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans and the surrounding parishes, more than 40 Jewell students spent all spring break traveling south to support the recovery efforts alongside FEMA and other local community organizations. What I thought would be a single trip became something larger. We kept going back. Year after year, 2006 to 2008, we returned helping the communities rebuild and recover. And somewhere in between those 14-hour drives, and that's one way to New Orleans, 14 hours back, just for context purposes, I, along with Dr. Blaine Baker in the U-Haul rental van, and might I add, he's an exceptional professor in the physics department here, who also has exceptional taste in music. And I'll show age for a moment, because these are during the ancient days where Spotify did not exist, but instead, the survival of a road trip actually was on CDs and these things called second-generation iPods, at least 8 gigabytes of memory. But Dr. Baker had phenomenal music. I learned something very important. Meaningful service is rarely glamorous. Most of the time, it's repetitive, quiet, and unseen. It's choosing to show up long after the headlines fade and the attention disappears. William Jewell taught many of us that leadership was never meant to be transactional. It was meant to be transformational. Years later, that lesson would take on an even greater meaning with my wife, Callie, who's also a Jewell alum. Together, we're now trying to raise our 3 boys, Theodore, Owen, and Weston, who's sitting in the crowd today. Help them understand that leadership is not about being the center of attention. It's about responsibility, compassion, and stewardship. It's about whether people are stronger, kinder, and more hopeful because you were part of their lives. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to climb Mount Elbert with my oldest son. For those not familiar with Mount Elbert, it's 14,400 feet elevation, the second highest peak in the lower 48 of the United States, and the highest peak in the state of Colorado. Theodore was only 4 years old at the time, and there were moments during that climb where he was cold, frustrated, exhausted, and absolutely certain he was done. And honestly, as a parent, there were moments where I quietly wondered if this was a terrible parental decision, which may have, but step by step, we kept climbing. And eventually we reached the summit. And what I remember most was not the view. It was watching him realize he was capable for more than what he believed. And graduates, that's leadership. Helping people find strength they did not know they possessed. Encouraging others to grow. Improving the ground beneath your feet simply because you were there. The world you're entering desperately needs more people willing to do exactly that. People willing to build instead of divide, to serve instead of perform, to improve instead of simply criticize. So wherever life takes you, boardrooms, the classrooms, hospitals, laboratories, military service, communities, or even homes, leave those places better than how you found them. Leave people better than how you found them. Because in the end, your greatest legacy will not be what you achieved yourself. It'll be your presence and what that made possible for others. Leave every place better. Graduates, the world you're entering is uncertain. The seas will not be calm. You will face moments where the path forward is unclear, but William Jewell did not prepare you for comfort. It prepares you for responsibility. Responsibility to think clearly. Responsibility to lead honorably. Responsibility to serve something greater than yourself. So when adversity comes, resilience beats talent. When the world pressures you to perform instead of grow, build habits, not headlines. And wherever life takes you, leave every place better. That is how you navigate uncertainty. That is how you honor all